Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're talking about first responders this month, and I'm excited to be here with MB today to hear her perspective. My name is Dina Mitchell. I'm the founder and executive director of the Realize Foundation, and our mission is to reduce suicide statistics across humanity. In October 2020, we launched the Save a Life Challenge, which is all about having the conversation. Our theory is instead of targeting only the humans struggling with ideation, is that we spread awareness and education to all humans. So when the person struggling is ready to have the conversation, there are people around them that will understand how to listen and be supportive. And in turn, we stop the stigma. This will cause people to get help when they need it and ultimately reduce the suicide statistics that have been growing for decades. You can learn more at our website at therealizefoundation.org, or you can just search hashtag SaveALifeChallenge. So as I said, this month, June, we're focusing on the first responder community, and I'm so excited to be here with MB today. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, Dina. Nice to meet you. Thanks for inviting myself and if any of the other members from my team are able to make it and they hop on. So I belong to an organization that's called Every Coast Helicopter Operations. And a sub part of that is a group of us called FAST, which stands for Flight Crew Assistance Team. And basically it started in the helicopter section of EMS, what we call HEMS. And it was born after there were fatal crashes or crashes that resulted in, significant injuries. We would deploy to that area and help the program that had the crash. But what we found is that there's so much more to EMS than just that one big event. It's the cumulative stress of the day-to-day of the, you go from one call to the next and you don't really have time to process things. And our 800 number, which is answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is for the cumulative stress, or, you have a bad job or just getting completely overwhelmed by life in general. We're here to take care of our own industry. A lot of us notice that police and fire are really good about taking care of their own, but emergency medical services, not so much. So a little bit of my background, I have been in EMS for 33 years. I started when I was 18. I was not at all prepared for some of the stuff I saw at a younger age. I then went on to nursing school, which prepared me a little bit more. There was a little bit more open conversation and dialogue, but not a lot more. So there were still, things that I'm like, wow, like they didn't cover this in any of the schools I went to. I was working as a manager for a critical care transport team that also had an EMS division attached to it. And a weekend that I was administrator on call, one of my EMTs hung herself. And she lived in our primary response area. So I had my ALS crew and the BLS crew working on a coworker. And that's when I realized really how polarizing the topic of suicide is, and that it's not really talked about. There was, a lot of animosity I found between people that didn't help the situation. They felt that our EMT was weak, that she was selfish, that she shouldn't have done this to other people. And then there were the other people that kind of got it. They're like, well, I wish she had talked to us. I wish she had said something, and they were holding and internalizing that guilt and trying to piece things together on the fly, trying to take care of, the crews that were there, the crews that were coming in, and keeping administration happy, because all of a sudden I have every, paramedic unit, every ambulance from our system out of service. And I got support from outside agencies sending crews in. Some crew, they were like, wait, you had a suicide? No, we're not sending you a crew for that. But other agencies were much more, helpful. They're like, hey, we're going to send you help until you can figure things out and get some crews back on the road and start answering, your own call volume. But I did get initially a lot of pushback from administration for making the decision to do an emergency stand down of all crews involved. I did a quick debriefing, kind of picked through people that seemed like they were okay. I gave them the option to go home. Some wanted to go back to work. Those were the ones that I was actually more concerned about, because that's what we do. We just kind of internalize everything and we go back to work and we get the job done. And getting the job done is the most important part. And by doing that, you sacrifice some of yourself at times. Eventually, administration did come around and they did provide us with the support that we needed. They offered debriefing sessions as groups, as individuals. We ended up giving time off to crew members. But it was that first 24 hours was really a battle. And there were people that refused to go to her services or talk to the family. I just think we need to shed better light on the situation and understand that it's not a weakness and it's not the person being selfish, that something has flipped that switch from our basic instinct for survival to not surviving. And I don't think anybody truly understands what can flip that switch. But I don't think it's anyone in healthcare's business or anywhere, honestly, to judge a person who's experienced that flip and, reach out to them. And if you see a change in someone's personality or, the situation's bad, sometimes just, picking up the phone or, hey, everything okay? Do you need to talk? Can I do anything for you? Is the impetus to start that conversation. Because you never know what someone's going through. You never know their whole backstory. You never know, that their life is crumbling. They come to work, they're on time, they're happy, they do great patient care. And then you find out that their whole personal life is crumbling apart. And they're literally one bad interaction away from making a poor decision. So it's just, I think being kind to each other is important.
You're so right about the kindness. And I thought somebody told me, I don't know where I heard this, but a couple years ago somebody put this in my brain. I don't know if it was a conversation or something I read, but it was about, when you pass somebody in the grocery store or on the street and you smile at them or say hello, like you never know what that person is dealing with.
No.
And you never know how much you just saying hello to them can change their whole world.
Absolutely.
You just never know. And so I do want to talk about the comment about suicide being selfish, because as an attempt survivor myself, I know that when you're in that place, you think there's only a couple things you are focusing on. One is the pain that you're in, whatever that may be. And two is that you think everyone would be better without you, and you don't think anybody would miss you, that nobody would care. It's not that is all true, but that is how you feel in that moment. And they almost feel like it's doing other people a favor for them to be gone. And so that is the side that I've seen personally. And so a friend of mine said to me that it was selfish one time when I lost a friend, and it really made me defensive. And I think that the people who have never experienced depression, or and people can experience like loss or grief, but that's not depression. And I think that's the misnomer here, is that people think that, well, I had a parent die or a spouse die and I was depressed for a little while. Well, that is you processing grief. That is not depression. And it's still very important to process the grief.
Yes.
Because if you internalize it, it can do bad things to your body too. But if you are severely depressed, there's a whole different story that people who've never experienced just can't fathom what you would feel enough to make that decision in your life. And I think it's so important that we make that distinction and that people understand the difference. And I've been posting some videos on our social media pages from other sources and giving them credit, because they've done such a good job at explaining how depression feels, so people can understand it better. Because like you said, and until we all understand each other better, and we understand, the medical field does not treat our brain like the rest of our body,
No.
unfortunately. that
Not at all.
we have to be able to be kind and be open to this conversation so we can understand and we can help, and the people are comfortable enough to open up and say, hey, I need help today.
A conversation that I had with that I actually felt was, made a difference with an employee after this event happened. Um, they were grieving and they were angry and feeling
Mhm.
that she was selfish and I was like, well, wait a minute. I was like, so this is a disease, and clearly she wasn't getting help. But how difficult is it to get help? Have you ever tried to get help? And we as a society and as medical professionals need to start viewing mental health the same as we do asthma or diabetes or any chronic medical condition. Like, if you have diabetes, it gets treated and people understand, okay, you're diabetic. I'm not going to, offer you a ton of sugar, or I'm going to, hey, let's take a walk because I know it's going to help keep your A1C low. Like, people know what to do to support a diabetic, but we don't know what to do to support people that have mental health issues. And there's not a lot of avenues for people to get help, especially if you're uninsured. Even insured people, like,
Mhm.
it's a lot of times not covered. They make it very difficult. You have to jump through a lot of hoops. The copays are ridiculous. And if you're already struggling and you have to jump through extra hoops, you may not have the fortitude to actually make it all the way through the process to get help. So the whole system, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, needs to be revamped so that it's easy access. That you don't. It should be one phone call, and okay, what can we do to help you? What are your needs? And let's address them like we do for every other chronic illness in this country.
It's so true and so well put. Thank you for talking about that, because it's true. I think the barriers are because people don't understand what it is. Like you said, people understand what diabetes is and what causes it and what makes it better, but people don't understand because mental health is such a broad subject. So it's like, are you talking about depression? Are you talking about bipolar? Are you talking about ADHD? Are like, what kind of mental health are we talking about? And is it the kind where people are like institutionalized, or is it people that are high achiever people in society that own businesses? So there's such this big gap about what it even means. And people who
Exactly.
struggle with it don't always even understand what's going on. Like, I didn't understand for decades that I had been in a relationship that was emotionally abusive. I thought that I was in a relationship that I just cared more than he did, and something was wrong with me, or I wasn't the best girlfriend or something. Like,
Yeah,
it's like we always put it on ourselves, and we don't understand the big picture. And I think one good thing that's come from COVID is that people are talking about mental health more,
absolutely.
but we still have a long way to go.
We do. We have a very long way to go. And going back, I know this is highlighting emergency medical services or first
Mhm,
responders.
mhm,
Um, I think this is a tougher group to get through to than maybe the general populace. Um, when I started in 1988, you were considered weak if you cried in a call, and it was predominantly male dominated. A lot of times I was the only female, um, you know, working that day or working for that company. Um, and, you really had to like stuff those emotions down. Like, the last thing you wanted to do was get labeled a crier because then you got tortured and tormented. And looking back, you know, hindsight's 2020. I now understand that a lot of that mentality was their way of protecting themselves. It was
mhm.
easier for them to focus on me than accepting that they were having problems processing whatever it is that we had just, participated in. Um, and there was never any time allowed for a debriefing or a safety stand down. It was just, okay, you just did, CPR on a child that was beaten to death by its care provider, and we need you to go pick Granny up who fell and broke her hip. Like, chop chop, let's go. Um, and I think that now is starting to change slowly. I think people are now at least looking at those, high profile responses and saying, hey, let's reach out, is the crew okay? But we're still not really dealing with like the cumulative stress, the day after day, year after year of seeing people literally at their worst.
Mm-hmm.
um, that's when they call an ambulance, when they are literally at their worst. The worst day of their entire life is generally when we have contact with people, or you get frustrated because you're dealing with people that, have no security, system. So, and no safety net for them. So they're, constantly calling. And, there's a better way for this person to get help, but the system is broken and it doesn't work. And then you become that last line of defense, which wears down on you, especially when you haven't eaten, and you'd like to go to the bathroom, but this is the third time you're going to see this person this week alone. And there's other crews out there that, have been there.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's things like that that we need to, address as EMS, that having these feelings doesn't make you weak, that it's not shameful. The stigma of worrying about your job, worrying about people not wanting to be your partner if you voice these feelings and concerns that you have. It's only, I think, worse for police and fire. I think they are expected to be even stronger than an EMS provider. Um, but what I would say is you need to, until the system fix itself, you have to be part of the change that you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to start building your own village that will be there for you when things fall apart. So, whether your village consists of other EMS providers who understand what you do, or people completely out of EMS because you need to shut that off and not be involved and go out and do something, or a combination of both. And that's what I use, is a combination. I have my EMS people, I have my non EMS people, and that's my village for
Mm-hmm.
when things are not going well. And, you touch base with them, you reach out, and it makes a difference. And you have to learn how to do things for yourself. And I don't mean independence, I mean kind things where you can say, you know what, I know you're shorthanded, but I need the day off and I'm not going to come in. I'm sorry, I can't, because I have to go out and do something to clear my head and to lift my soul and to make me a better, person, so that I'm a better provider. And a lot of times it's difficult for people in EMS to do that. You feel guilty because your coworkers are now working short staffed, or, the truck's out of service, and you're like, let me go in. And, there were times, in my younger days, where I would work 30, 40 days in a row without a day off. And it's just not healthy. And, I know that now. But at the time, like, I'm good. I'm good. I got this, but, and I'm lucky because I'm here to talk about it. And, I haven't had any, lasting, long term, consequences from doing stuff like that. But there are other people out there that aren't as fortunate as I am. And I'm hoping like this younger generation coming up kind of, learns from our mistakes and learns to not only take care of each other, but take care of themselves a little better.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You know, um, I know this is very different, but as an entrepreneur, I relate to so many things you just said, because work was my coping mechanism. And I feel like maybe in your situation, it was the same thing, because
Yeah,
as long as your mind is busy with something, you don't have to face what you need to process for yourself.
exactly.
Um, and the self-care piece is so huge, because when we're in that rat race or on that hamster wheel, we're doing everything but taking care of ourselves, and then we just crash eventually. And it's like
Exactly.
you have to have some kind of a routine. I'm learning this at 51. You have to have some kind of routine in your life that
Yep.
keeps you grounded and keeps you healthy mind, body, and soul, in order to do all these things that we do in our life, and the things we see and how we process them and how we recover from them. So I think what you said is so important. So what do you do you have any tips about what you personally do that might could help some other people that are listening?
So what I found is, like I said, you have to have a village, and you have to create that village for yourself. And it doesn't have to be a big village. I am so fortunate that I have uh, three friends that I have known since childhood that have absolutely nothing to do with the healthcare field. They're actually teachers,
Mhm.
and they listen, and they don't understand so much the job. I think they're getting better at understanding the job now after all this time.
Mhm.
Um, but they're good about listening, and they're also good about, hey, you're a little angry, what's going on? Like, and calling me out on poor
Mhm.
behavior. And then I have friends that are, from EMS, that I can be like, hey, this really messed up thing happened. Like, and kind of talk it through. And okay, like there was nothing else I could do, and then let it go. And I think the most important thing is to not bring work home with you. You need to be able to develop a way to shut work out of your personal life. And if that means turning your phone off, or, like going away, like just plan, like, I'm going to have this time. It doesn't have to be every week, but okay, once a month, I'm going to go away overnight, and I'm not going to, answer my phone for work, or, and just build that time in for yourself. And then also understand that taking care of yourself is not a luxury. I used to always feel like, oh, I'd love to have the time to go to the gym, or I'd love to have the time to do this, and then I would feel guilty about taking that time to do things, and now I don't at all. Like, I have it built into my schedule. I am in the pool twice a week, and that is my time, and I don't give that up freely. Like, if somebody needs a switch, I'm like, it's a pool day. If they're really desperate, I'll try to help them out. But generally, like, it's a scheduled pool day, especially having been out for a year with COVID. Like,
Mhm.
now I'm really protective of that time. And, having interest outside of work, and really being able to um,
Mhm.
do things that you enjoy, and then also being aware of yourself. Like, if you're doing the things that normally make you happy and they're not, that it's time to reevaluate. And sometimes you're in a toxic work environment and you need to go, and that's the only solution. Other times, maybe you're the one making the environment toxic, and you need to look at yourself.
Mhm.
um, a lot of people feel, especially in EMS, they work multiple jobs, and they financially get trapped into doing what they're doing. um, but you have to look at yourself. If you're in that situation, there's always options.
Mhm.
And you have to find another way to put food on the table and keep yourself sane at the same time. And it's easier said than done, and I've been there, but I've done it. And like, you just have to be honest with yourself that, like, this isn't really working for me, and I need to find. And I've seen a lot of people leave EMS because the pay's not great, the hours are terrible, nights, weekends, holidays, the stress, and they go do something else. And
Mhm.
part of them misses, the fulfilling part of helping people. And then there's a part of them is like, yeah, I don't really miss it. I'm kind of glad I'm doing something new now, something different. So I think being self aware is very important, and then making sure that you have your own outlets, and then having your village around you that
Mhm.
is, one, going to hold you accountable for your poor behavior, and two, is going to be there for you, if you need them. And if anybody is in a situation right now, there's a wonderful group. I don't know if you've heard of them. It's called uh, the campaign Code Green campaign, and it is suicide awareness and prevention for first responders, police, fire, EMS. Um, and I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to kind of prepare what their website is, but I believe it's called it's the Code Green campaign. And they have a website, and they have a Facebook page, and they try to get information out there. They try to provide support, Because a lot of people are afraid to talk to their coworkers because they don't, all the stigmas that we already talked about. So there
Mhm.
are, people that you can talk to that do the same job that can kind of understand versus reaching out to someone who doesn't really understand the stresses of EMS, just like a general counselor or even an 800 number. Sometimes you end up explaining more about what your job is and not getting the help that you need. So
That's a
that
good
would be
point.
my only recommendations.
Okay, that's a good point, and I'll get that website from you afterwards, and I'll post it in the link in the post. But um, I wanted to say one thing about when you said, don't take work home with you. I just want to make one comment about that because I think that you have to find an outlet. And like you said, your village. And I don't know, I know especially with what you do, you can't always talk about details or things, but you have to have an outlet. So one of these organizations, like you mentioned, or maybe James's organization, Stay Fit for Duty, or one of those. Like those are places that you can go in a safe space with other first responders and talk about this because you can't just stuff it down. I did
No,
it for 20 years. You can't do that. You have to process it and release it. So I wanted to say that. And the other thing I always talk about to every audience is on when you're having a good day, tell somebody that loves you what a bad day looks like and how they can be supportive. Because then when you come home one day from work and you've had a really tough day and maybe you forget to take the trash out or do the dishes, they understand what's going on and they know how to support you. So that's just one.
that's excellent, excellent advice. And I think along those lines, I think we also have to acknowledge that our good day is not always the same every day.
Mhm.
So some days, your best day, you're only given 70%. Other days, you're given 95. And that's because we're human and we're allowed to fluctuate like that. And, you
Mhm.
know, you have to allow yourself to have those fluctuations and not hold yourself to that 95 standard or 100% standard every day because we're not machines. And you're allowed to, what, today's not a good day. um I'll share a kind of funny story. But we have a barometer in the house for me, about what type of, where I am on the spectrum of good days and bad days, and how stressful work is. We refer to it as hallway sex, how much hallway sex is going on. And initially everyone gets excited. And for us, hallway sex is us standing at opposite ends of the hallway, screaming F you at each other. So if there's a lot of hallway sex, we have to do a hard stop and reset and be like, okay, who's stressed out? Who's like off their game? But it's taken us a long time to get to that point that when we start fighting with each other, that we know, okay, something else is going on because we're pretty good at this and we're not good right now. So what's stressing you out? What's doing this? And sometimes it's him, sometimes it's me. Most of the time it's me. I'll be honest. Um, but it makes me aware of it. And then I'm like, okay, what is stressing me out? And I either need to deal with it or I need to get rid of it. If it's something in my life that I don't need, it's got to go. If it's causing me to fight with my biggest supporter, my cheerleader,
Mhm.
and I can't fix that problem, then it has to go because, you know, anyone that supports me is not worth something, that makes me crazy. So I think that kind of helps us keep the check and balance in. And sometimes he'll be like, "Hey, what can I do to help you fix this?" And sometimes he'll be like, "That's not fixable. It needs to go." And you have to allow each other that, um, privilege, and it shouldn't be a privilege, but to have that, candid conversation with each other. You have to, allow that to be free conversation and not bring it back up in a future fight or
Mhm.
whatever. Like, that's it needed to be said.
Yes, yes. I think my three most common words these days are honesty, authenticity, and kindness. Because if we could all treat each other with those three things, then we can help each other so much better, and we can support each other so much better. So
Absolutely.
that's my words.
Yeah, I think those are great words. And I think your foundation is amazing, bringing, light to an area that people want kept dark. Can feel like an uphill battle, I'm sure. But like, we agree on the FAST team that if we make one person's life better, then everything that we've done, all the work that we do, all the planning and the prepping, then that is worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can, because you don't know what that one person's going to do, you don't know how they're going to impact the world and make a difference and pay it forward. And sometimes I think we lose sight of that. We're so in this culture now where instant gratification, we want to see, where our hard work is going. And in projects like this, you don't have that luxury. You just have to have faith that, your hard work is going to pay off in the future. And you may or may not see it, but someone's going to talk about you. Someone's going to be like, hey, I saw this podcast, and, this woman had this great foundation and these great ideas, and I was in a terrible place and it made a difference for me. And they'll share that with someone else and it'll get passed forward. So, congratulations to you for, taking COVID and making it a positive. Like, not many people, took the opportunity to, say, hey, I'm stuck home. What can I do? How can I make the world better? We always joke around, my old paramedic preceptor always told us, if you're not part of the solution, you are the problem.
That's true. That's true. And you just made me really reflect back to, the paramedics that saved my life 24 years ago. And I wish I knew who they were so I could say thank you, because they had no idea that we would be sitting here talking about this today. So
exactly.
yeah.
And you never know. It's a strange world. Sometimes you run into people and you're like, you look familiar.
It is. Well, I've lived in 8 different states, so that was a long time ago and in a different place and time, but I really enjoyed talking to you, MB, and I hope we can have another conversation sometime. Is there any last words you want to leave our audience with?
No, I think I've kind of,
Okay.
beaten that dead horse a little bit.
Okay.
I wish more of our team members could have, jumped in today. Not the eloquent one. I'm from New Jersey, so whatever's on my mind, it comes out of my mouth, and it's generally not, fancy. But like, if you need help, definitely reach out. If you're not even sure, even if you're thinking you might need help, that's the time, to talk to someone. And it, like I said, it doesn't even have to be like a professional. Just sometimes talking to a colleague that you trust, or a friend, a confidant, clergy, someone, just getting it off your chest. Sometimes you're like, oh, like the weight of the world is now lifted and I feel so much better. And that there's nothing to be ashamed about in any type of mental health issues. I think there's people that acknowledge that they have them, or that they're prone to them, and then there's people that ignore them. That's kind of like, because anyone, I think, is susceptible to, mental illness given the right circumstances. So, maybe you're fine right now, but who knows where your life is going to be in 5 years, so never cast judgment on someone for where they are at this point in time.
Very, very true. And I think it's not only outside influence and our choices in life, but it really is the chemistry in our brain, and there's science behind that. And there are things that people are dealing with that they do not have control over. So this past year has been really hard on the world. Like it's not, like, oh, something natural disaster happened in one area and we all need to help these people. And truly everyone was affected. So what I would like to leave you all with is to please reach out to those close to you. have this conversation. Let them know that you are there, even if it's just to listen. If you don't know what to say, just let them know that you support them and you care about them and that they matter. That makes a world of difference to someone struggling.
Yes.
So, with that said, I hope you will follow us. You will hear more of our live conversations and discussions, and we will have be talking about first responders again next week. And we're going to, I think, have a firefighter next week, which
Oh,
I'm
awesome.
excited about. And then in July, we're going to be talking about youth and parents, which I think is going to be a super important topic right now. So you can find us at realizefoundation.org, or you can Google hashtag SaveALifeChallenge. You can subscribe at our website and you can donate there if you're able. We would appreciate that. And I just want you all to remember that Save a Life Challenge is all about having the conversation. Thank you, MB.
You're welcome. Take care.